In episodes 2 and 4 of this series, we visited graves that are connected to Band of Brothers and the Pacific. And those two shows, you know, they're legendary. They introduced a whole new group of people to World War II and all the stories around it. And in 2024, the same creative team gave us Masters of the Air, taking the story of the men to the skies of the 8th Air Force 100 Bomb Group. Here at Arlington, there are several familiar names from the show Masters of the Air that are resting here. We're going to visit all of them, and in this video I'm going to focus on people from the show that you know from the show. Maybe there are some more people that served here with the 100 Bomb Group or in the 8th Air Force, probably. But yeah, you have to make choices on who to visit, so I'm deciding to focus on the guys that you know from the show. There are 5 graves here connected to the show, and we're going to visit them all. So let's get started. So this is the first grave that we're going to visit from Masters of the Air, and if you have seen the show, you will most definitely recognize this name, John C. Egan, one of the main characters of Masters of the Air, nicknamed Bucky, played by Callum Turner on the show. And Egan's story begins in March of 1940 when he trained as a cadet at Randall Field in Texas, and this is where he met his lifelong friend Gail Buck Cleven. And from very early on, Egan stood out, and by August 1942 he was the operations officer for the newly formed 100th Bomb Group. Less than a year later he was leading men into combat from their base at Thorpe Abbotts in England. In June of 1943 he took command of the 418th Bomb Squadron and quickly became known as not just for his leadership but also for his style. 100th Bomb Group navigator Harry Crosby describes Egan and Cleven in his book as Air Corps Ranch, their heads cocked on the back of their heads, both wearing white scarves, the souls of romanticism, hated discipline. So that's a pretty accurate description, I think, of Egan. And the group's post-war newsletter described him as lean, dark, young man who could turn on the charm and turn it off whenever he liked. Egan flew 12 combat missions with the 100th, often in the co-pilot seat. One of the most intense was the Regensburg mission on August 17, 1943. And he later recalled watching fortresses shut down all around him and landing in North Africa, feeling a kind of brotherhood he never experienced before or after. Then came October 10th, 1943, the infamous Munster raid, and Egan was the command pilot when German fighters tore into the formation for a brutal 45 minutes. Only one aircraft of the 100 Bomb Group made it back to base, and just 2 days earlier his best friend Cleven had gone down over Bremen. And Egan was devastated but determined to be on the next mission, and Crosby wrote that he practically demanded to fly the next mission. And when Egan was eventually shot down himself and arrived at Stalag Luft 3, Cleven welcomed him with, "What the hell took you so long?" The guys spent the next 18 months as POWs, and when the Soviets approached in January of 1945, the Germans evacuated the camp. And you can see everything like on Masters of the Air. And also the famous march where Egan joined a column of 10,000 prisoners in the dead of winter, marching for days through the winter, snow and ice. And Cleven managed to escape during this march, but Egan was shuffled through various camps until he was finally liberated. I think the casting of Masters of the Air they nailed it. You know, Callum Turner, he captures not only Egan's looks, but also his spirit. And most of the big moments you see on the show, you know, the Regensburg mission, the Munster mission, his friendship with Cleven, Stalag Luft 3, you know, all of this happened in real life. And after the war, Egan stayed in the Air Force, married former WASP pilot Josephine Pitts, who's resting here together with him. You can see her name at the bottom of the gravestone. And he later served during the Korean War, but sadly his life was cut short. He died of a heart attack in 1961. He was just 45 years old. Up next is a guy who was on the same plane as John Egan when he went down over Germany. And you might remember him from the show as well. He's played by actor Jordan Colson, and his very distinctive look, stands out from the very start of the series. You know, yeah, he had his gold teeth, and the guy I'm talking about, of course, is Howard Hambone Hamilton. Hamilton was born in 1923 in Augusta, Kansas, and he served as a bombardier. That's the guy up front in the nose of the plane, aiming and releasing the bombs over the target. He was one of the original members of the 100 Bomb Group, arriving at Thorpe Abbotts with the very first wave of planes and aircrews. And in total he flew 22 combat missions, and his last one being that deadly one we talked about over Munster on October 10th, 1943. And if you've seen Masters of the Air, you'll remember the intense scene where Hamilton gets trapped in the hatch of the airplane trying to bail out as the plane goes down, and he's hanging halfway out the hatch when someone manages to cut him loose and he parachutes to safety. But yeah, he was captured by the Germans, and he spent the rest of the war as a prisoner in Stalag Luft 3 alongside Egan and other members of the crew. And after the war, Hamilton stayed in the reserves, eventually reaching the rank of colonel, and he made full use of the GI Bill, earning an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, followed by a master's degree and eventually a PhD in 1962. So pretty smart guy. He worked in the private sector before going into academia as a professor at the University of Wichita, and he passed away in 1998 at the age of 75, and he's buried here in Arlington. And if you want to go see him, he's buried in section 66, grave 3629. Richard Macon was born in Birmingham, Alabama. He joined the Army Air Force in 1942, and after graduating from flight training on February 8, 1944, he deployed to Italy with the 302nd Fighter Squadron. And like you can see on Masters of the Air, on August 12th, during a mission escorting bombers to destroy radar stations near Toulon, France, Macon's plane was hit by flak. It flipped upside down, it burst into flames, and he tried to regain control, but he passed out and his body slumped over forward on the control stick, and the plane went into a loop and ejected him, so he was very fortunate there. And while falling unconscious through the sky, his parachute somehow deployed, and 45 minutes later he woke up on the ground surrounded by German soldiers. Macon was taken to a field hospital where he was diagnosed with a broken shoulder and a broken neck. We can also see that on Masters of the Air. His shoulder was treated, but before they could fully assess or treat his neck, the Germans moved out because Allied forces were approaching, and he was later transferred to Stalag Luft 3, the same POW camp that held John Egan and Gil Cleven from the 100 Bomb Group. And on the show we can see Macon walking around the camp with Alexander Jefferson and Robert Daniels, two other Tuskegee airmen that were captured. But in reality he was separated from them. Macon was sent to a hospital where x-rays confirmed his broken neck, and was finally treated for that. But before he could fully recover, Russian troops advanced and the camp was evacuated. Macon was transferred to Stalag 8D in Nuremberg, and then to Stalag 7A at Moosburg, where he was eventually liberated. He was honorably discharged in December of 1945 and received an Air Medal for his service and a Purple Heart. And after the war he didn't stop serving, he just served in a different way. He earned a master's degree in mathematics from Indiana University, and he became a high school teacher, and later served as principal and school administrator until his retirement in 1987. And Richard Macon, he passed away on October 9th, 2007, at the age of 86. Next grave is from a guy that we only see for a very short time on Masters of the Air. I think we only see him in episode number 1. But he is the original commander of the 100 Bomb Group, and his name is Harold Huglin. Like I said, Huglin, this is a grave. He was the original commander of the 100 Bomb Group, leading in just under a month, not for a very long time, from June 6th to July the 2nd, 1943. And in the series you see him struggling with what appears to be a bleeding stomach ulcer. He's shown vomiting blood before being relieved of his command. And after he leaves and he is replaced, we don't really find out what happened to him. And you know, that's one of the cool things of coming to a place like this. We can tell his story beyond the show. And after commanding the 100 Bomb Group, he was promoted to the commander of the 13th Combat Bombardment Wing, which included the 100 Bomb Group. He started there in September of 1943. So he was relieved of command in July of 1943, and he resumed his service in September. So there were a few months in between that service. So that, for me, acknowledges the fact that he really was sick, like shown on the show. And according to the wartime diary of Major Marvin Bowman, who also is portrayed on the show by Stephen Campbell Moore, Huglin was ill, and Bowman wrote, "Got a new commander today. Colonel Huglin has been ill for several days with serious stomach ulcers and had to be relieved due to illness, it may be assumed." So yeah, what we see on the show on Masters of the Air, him vomiting our blood, that was actually, that actually happened. You know, I don't know if that happened, you know, if he vomited blood all over his desk at that exact moment, but he was dealing with stomach ulcers, and that's why he was relieved of command of the 100 Bomb Group. You know, like I said, he recovered and resumed his service, and he would go on to hold several key positions throughout the war, flying also 9 combat missions himself, and he was promoted to Brigadier General in January of 1945. And his awards included the Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross, Bronze Star, the Air Medal, and many more. And after the war, Huglin remained in the Air Force, serving in a number of senior roles until his retirement in 1959. And yeah, he passed away on November 24th, 1975. He's portrayed on the show by Nikolai Kinski, and you know, and even, you know, we didn't see a whole lot of him on the show. He was a very important figure for the 100 Bomb Group, the original commander. Harold Huglin was the first commanding officer of the 100 Bomb Group, but the man we are visiting next is the guy who took over for him in July of 1943, and that's the Neil Chick Harding, and I'm standing at his grave right now. Harding was portrayed by British actor James Murray on Masters of the Air, and he's shown throughout the series briefing his men before missions and anxiously awaiting their return in the control tower. And in real life, he had a long military background, graduating from West Point in 1927, and he served in a variety of roles before the war, including a flight instructor. When Harding assumed command of the 100 Bomb Group, he led them through some of their darkest days, missions where losses were very high and morale was very low. And Harding became pretty ill with gallstones, but he refused to report to the medics for weeks, and it wasn't until March of 1944 that he was finally relieved and sent home for treatment. And his gallstones were so severe that by the time he had arrived at the hospital, he weighed just 115 pounds, and you know, the doctor said that the gallstones nearly killed him. And Harding wasn't just a commander, he was very beloved by the men that he served with, the men of the 100 Bomb Group. And he was known for standing shoulder to shoulder with his crews, even flying combat missions himself during the most dangerous times that he led them. And his leadership helped hold the 100 Bomb Group together when it was needed the most during those very tough missions that you can also see on Masters of the Air. And after recovering from the gallstones, Harding stayed in the military until his retirement in 1957, and he passed away on April 22nd, 1978 at the age of 73. And he's now resting here at Arlington, and I think for me, a very interesting man, and I think they nailed his character on the show. I think the actor really portrayed him well. If you read about him and the stories that cement how they talked about him, you can feel his leadership capabilities and the respect that he got from the men. So yeah, one of those characters that was portrayed really well on Masters of the Air. And with the grave of Neil Harding, we've come to the end of this video, and today I chose to visit the graves of the men who you know from the show Masters of the Air. There might be a lot more men resting here from the 100 Bomb Group, but yeah, I chose to focus on those guys that you know from the show. Doesn't mean that the other guys resting here from the 8th Air Force or 100 Bomb Group are any less important or anything, but you know, you have to make choices when you make videos like this. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will join me again on the next one. In the next video in this series, I'm going to visit some famous movie graves of actors who served in the military during World War II or any other war, and we're also going to visit some graves that are associated with famous movies and TV shows that you might have seen. So yeah, if you don't want to miss that episode, hit the notification bell and maybe even consider subscribing to the channel. It would really mean a lot to me. It really helped out the channel a lot. And so for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.